Hi loves, how's it going? It's Anne. Welcome to Seeking Minimalism. This video is going to be my last video of the series. Number one video is about my emotional purge. Number two is the exterior process. Number three is things I thought I needed. And number four is about social detoxing. So today's video is going to concentrate on my relationship with money. And this Seeking Minimalism, if you're new to it, this mini little series is just to share with you my journey towards seeking minimalism and how I am able to define it through my evolution of learning about what seeking minimalism mean to me. Minimalism has become this trendy lifestyle where a lot of people think it's just a way of living, when it's actually about enriching your life by having less and doing more. So through my journey and through my process, I have learned a great deal about myself. It has healed me tremendously, and it also really taught me a lot about who I am today. So I'm very grateful for what this journey have taught me, and therefore I'm sharing my journey with you, my process with you. And this process is definitely not a beautiful process. It's quite messy, but it's something that we don't often talk about or see when it comes to the topic of minimalism. You know, we often just see somebody organizing, simplifying, or portraying this lifestyle that is just so freeing. But in order for us to obtain this freedom, we must face all the messy things that is in our life. That's what I have been sharing, my messy process, my messy life. And today I'm going to talk about my relationship with money. I feel like that is a perspective that we don't often think or, open up to. Money is definitely a big factor into why I have been on this journey. I feel like it's very intimidating to think about. It's very intimidating to understand. So to give you a little bit context, if you're new to this, in my first video, The Emotional Purge, I did talk about my upbringing and how we had very little, and therefore it kind of led me to wanting this lifestyle of having more and thinking that that is the lifestyle that would bring me happiness. You know, the way I grew up, my parents didn't have much. We migrated into the United States, and my parents were always hardworking, making ends meet, putting a roof over our head. We had just enough. The reason why I believe that money was such a lack in my life was because I was always told that we didn't have money. I remember as a child going to Toys R Us. My parents would take us to the mall every now and then for fun, and we would just go to window shop. But it was also quite a tease for me as a child, going through the toy aisle, especially the Barbie dolls. But something I remember that I really wanted was this toy kitchen set. And I was just thinking in my mind how I could play around with it and pretend that I was making new recipes. But every time I told my parents I wanted it, they would say, we don't have money, maybe next time. And so the next time comes around, they're just like, we don't have money, sorry, we can't buy it. And that just really makes me feel like I will never have it. It was unobtainable, and that money was just something that we would never get. It just became a lifestyle and a belief that we were poor, and this is just the way of living. This is just life. This is how it works. Like, I will want things and I won't be able to get it because we will never have the money to get it. And so that was how I grew up, just the belief of lack. So moving forward, once I got my first job, I was 13 years old. I was working at a waitress, making money under the table because 16 was the legal age. And that was my first job where I can actually make and earn money in order to buy the things that I wanted. Like if I wanted new shoes or if I wanted something for myself, then that was my chance and opportunity. But still in my mind, what I believe was that money was hard to obtain, and therefore I have to work really hard for that, because that was what my parents were doing. They worked really hard, and they would always mention that I was getting paid $2-3 an hour, and the tips was mainly my main payment. And so I had to learn about customer service and how I can gain more tips by being extra friendly or helpful. Customer service is a very challenging job to be in. And it definitely taught me a lot. And I think that anything in customer service is such a great learning foundation for real life. And so I highly recommend it. It's not the most glamorous, it's not the most fun job, but learning how to deal with people is such a great foundation to dealing with real life. So that mentality of really working hard for what it is you want was reaffirmed into my mind, into my head. And it was until high school, like 12th grade and college, was when I started learning about how status is such a big deal. I've always just lived with the fact that, okay, my family's poor, we don't have money, that's just the way of life. But then when it started becoming a thing where I have to be more self-conscious of being poor, being embarrassed for dressing like I don't have money. That was when I started to think about, my status and money and how that can play a role in my self-confidence, and it can make me who I am. So money started defining me at this stage in my life. When kids in school and my peers were wearing brand names, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, things that cost a little bit more. And when kids started to laugh at other kids for wearing something that is from Kmart or something that is cheaper, that is when I became more self-conscious of how I present myself. And that was when I kind of let or allow money to define who I was becoming. And I think that a lot of us went through this stage, especially in high school, is wanting to fit in, wanting to be a part of something, wanting to belong, and wanting to be accepted. So we just kind of try to do whatever everybody else is doing, right? Whatever is accepted, we try to blend in with that. At that moment, my lifestyle, my family's lifestyle, we couldn't afford like Tommy Hilfiger, we couldn't afford Calvin Klein, we couldn't afford like those luxury brand names. But then I allowed that to become something that I was striving towards, and I allowed that to define and make me who I wanted to be. I think in high school, around that age, that's when we're finding ourselves and when we're, learning more about ourselves. So at that time, instead of learning what I genuinely want or what really serves me or what really sparks my curiosity, I'm just focused on trying to fit in. I'm just focused on trying to blend in and trying to feel accepted in order to feel validated. And so therefore I was just chasing the wrong dream. I was chasing the wrong thing. And I was chasing this lifestyle that wasn't really conducive to who I was at that time. So I brought that mentality to college, thinking that money and status will define who I am. But at the same time, I was also in survival mode. I also still believed that money was hard to obtain. Paying my tuition, paying for college, paying for all the expenses was just so difficult. I maxed out my credit card, paying for the books, paying for food, paying for just necessities, not even things that I wanted. It was just things that I had to have in order to be in school, in order to survive. So therefore, survival mode just kicked in. I was on my own. There's no way that I can move back home. And at that time, I just remember being afraid of everything. And I think that was also a childhood trauma of mine, is just being left out there to figure it out on my own. I didn't have a terrible childhood, but it did affect me in feeling like I was abandoned because I was always afraid throughout life. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody to kind of guide me, tell me what is okay, what is right, what is wrong. I'm very fortunate that I'm in a safe place, but most of the time I was just figuring life out on my own. And I remember just always feeling so afraid to talk to people, afraid to just do anything because I was so unsure, and I didn't have anybody to really reaffirm or help me figure out these decisions that I had to make in life as a young girl, as a young woman. Originally, I wanted to be an artist, but because I was afraid that artists wouldn't make money, I decided to study fashion merchandising, where I thought I would get the best of both worlds. After I got my associate degree, I realized that I cannot afford to continue school. Although I applied to one of the schools that I really wanted to go to, which was FIT in New York City, I got accepted, but I just couldn't afford tuition. I couldn't afford the living expenses in New York City. So I just gave up on that whole idea, and I went to get a job. It was a minimum paid job. I was a visual merchandiser at Forever 21. I was getting paid like minimum wage, well, a little bit more than minimum wage, but it was a fun job. I remember I really enjoyed learning about visual merchandising, the creative aspect of it, and just making a window so presentable so that way you can get attention from people. So that was a big learning experience for me, and I really did enjoy that. After a while, that job became really stressful because I butt-headed with the store manager there, just because, she wanted to manage me, but I was under corporate and she didn't like that. So it was a big ego play, and it was just a lot of back and forth, a lot of cattiness, and it was very unfortunate. I got promoted to being the district visual merchandiser, and the job just became more stressful because of that interaction with the store manager. And a lot of cattiness, when you're working with other younger girls and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't go away. It's like high school all over again. But then I was pregnant and I had my son, and so I took a step back from all of that. And then my partner then wanted to open his accounting tax business. And so I decided to help him fully, 110% of my time to help him with his business. After that, it was just a grind. I was just working so hard. We were the first one in, last one out. At the same time, I was a full-time mother while doing all of this. And I was just very alone, very, very, very alone. I didn't have any girlfriends that I can talk to. The only people who I really interacted with then was my son and his father, who was my partner then in the business. And it was very lonely because I didn't have any female interaction, any girlfriends that I can talk to or just, share or just kind of vent out to. So it was a lonely world for me. And I think that after a few years in that business, I kind of ventured out into YouTube on the side. Whenever I had time, I would make videos so that way I can be a little creative and also reach out to other people. I guess it was my way of just trying to have friends or interact with other people, my way of socializing. And it started to work. I started to create an audience. It didn't happen overnight. It took a couple of years in order for me to build an audience. And it was just a really, really fun hobby for me. I was making a little bit of money, enough to buy things for myself. When I started to make brand deals, that was when I finally hit financial freedom, and I was able to pay off all my school loans. I was able to pay off my credit card debt. I immediately pay off my debt. I didn't want to be bound or in debt at all. So that was the first thing I did. So YouTube gave me that financial freedom. It was also a platform for me to socialize, reach out to other people. It was something that I could have for myself because I was giving my all to that business. That wasn't mine. That was my partner's business. It was just nice to have something to myself. And so I was just working on this YouTube platform for a while. And although I was still giving it a lot of energy, still putting a lot of work into it, it was fun. So it was work that was re-energizing me back into doing more. It wasn't the kind of work that was just sucking the life out of me, which was the tax business, which was everything else that I was doing before. YouTube was just re-energizing me with more energy to just create more, and I just felt so empowered, and I felt like I was able to have a voice of my own. But after a while, I felt very intimidating with the financial structure of a business, and I was in a relationship where that relationship influenced me to believe that I wasn't smart enough to take care of or to understand money. And so I allowed that influence to become my belief, and I just thought that this is something that I can't do. And at the same time, I wanted to put more focus into just being creative, not taking away from that with, thinking about money, thinking about the business side. And so I asked my partner to, help me with this business, to help me manage it. And so he took care of that side. And at that time, it didn't feel like hard work because it was excitement, this excitement that I had, and that all this work and energy that I was putting into, it was re-energizing me. But then I started to feel imposter syndrome. And I started to feel like I didn't deserve this money that was coming in, that people will find out that I'm not all that interesting, and that whatever money comes in, like, I'm not worth it. And I just kind of believe or think that one day people will know that I'm not that interesting, or that I don't deserve this money, and brands will be like, well, she's not worth it. And so that was in the back of my head that throughout the whole time when I was, making all these brand deals. Like, I was just facing imposter syndrome without even noticing or realizing that. I didn't know that was a thing, and I was feeling it. So I was going through all of that at the same time, this disconnection with money, where my partner then was just kind of like spending money and making business decisions without me. I just felt like I lost this thing I created for myself. I lost this part of me, I finally had something for myself. I finally was able to build something for myself, something that I can finally be proud of, but then it was being taken away from me. And that was when I felt this huge disconnection with money. Now that I have it, I was afraid to lose it. And therefore, all this anxiety was being built up. During this time, I was being introduced to different agencies, different management. And when you become successful in that business, I think any kind of business, people start to see that they can make money from you. And so, people will tell you anything you want to hear. People will say anything that you want to say, and people will be your friend. I met a few people who I genuinely thought were my friends. They invited me to their Christmas dinner. They introduced their family to me. We were very vulnerable to each other. They talk about, their vulnerabilities. We talked about, deep personal stuff. And so I thought that I had these amazing friendships. And later on, they wanted to help me out with my business. But after giving them the money that they wanted, they just left the project, and I never hear back from them. On top of that, my long-term relationship that was pretty much a significant part of my life, and that was pretty much family to me, he left the business, but he also took a lot of money out of the business without my permission. And so that was one of the biggest betrayal in my life. And at the same time, these other betrayals were happening all around the same time. And so I was going through this huge emotional turmoil. For someone like me back then, I was just desperate for friendship. I was desperate for connection. And so I was pretty naive, and I was very trusting. And so I thought people who are friendly were really my friends. And it was very naive of me, and I didn't know any better, but that's how you learn, right? I kind of started to learn the hard way on, people's motives. And it was heartbreaking many times to see how, people treat you when you're not giving them what they want. So with that combination of, these fake relationships, these people who just see you as a moneymaker, who don't see you as a human being or just a genuine friend, it was heartbreaking. And these betrayals kind of triggered a childhood trauma that I had of feeling abandoned, of feeling alone. And although my childhood trauma, it's not terrible, it's not bad, but it did create this fear and anxiety in my head of being abandoned, being left alone. And so being betrayed as an adult really triggered a lot of that emotion. So because I was associating money with these relationships I had with these people, I started to see it as an evil and as something bad. But I didn't want it to control me and allow me to become a jaded person or a spiteful, hateful person. I was tired of being in that victim mindset. I mean, it's just a natural part of being human, right? You just sort of feel bad for yourself after a while. And I was kind of like falling into this dark place again in my life. And YouTube was this beautiful thing that done so much for me, that helped me learn so much about myself, that gave me a voice for myself. And then it just became this money-driven business that brought out the ugly in people. And it scared me for a while, where I just kind of stopped everything. I stopped a lot of my production. I did make a little bit of videos here and there, but most of everything I was doing in order to, bring in the brand deals, in order to kind of build that momentum for brands to recognize me, I stopped that. I stopped answering most of my business emails. I let go of my management team. I disconnected myself from the influencer community, the creator community, and I just kind of like, I had to go away for a moment. I had to take a break. At first, I stopped everything because I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. I was emotionally overwhelmed, and I just wanted to run away. And so, after a while, I realized that, if I try to run away from this, then I'm just giving this control. I'm giving fear the control to run who I am. I'm giving money the control. But money can be something else. It's a tool, and it depends on how I use it. Just like with many things that we have in our life, it depends on how we exercise it. It depends on how we use it, our mindset, our thoughts, our beliefs. It really depends how we exercise it and how we apply it into our life, how it can enrich us and how it can work for us. So altogether, I was thinking about, how can I make money work for me instead of being afraid of it, instead of allowing it to determine who I am, allowing it to run my life? How can I take control of this? And so instead of running away from all that, I'm able to bring that back to me and kind of like restructure on how I see this. And so my whole journey on seeking minimalism has definitely redefined itself in a whole new way. Instead of thinking that I have to have more, and instead of wanting more, I am able to live more. And I love that whole idea of reevaluating what my lifestyle is instead of what it should be, because I have been defining myself through what I was taught, through what I was told, through what I thought I should be. And money was a big part of that. The idea of wanting to belong, the idea of wanting to feel like I'm a part of something had brought me in the wrong direction. And once I stopped letting that lead my life, I was able to take back that control and just live my life more intentionally on how I see money, on how I use money. And instead of using it towards something that really at the end of the day doesn't serve me, a lifestyle that isn't conducive to who I really am. From the outside looking in, I had this amazing lifestyle. I was living in this big city, LA. I had this fancy apartment with all these amenities that I barely use. I barely used a gym. There were a few nice gyms in my apartment complex that I barely took advantage of. The pool, the jacuzzi, barely used them. Instead, I spend more money to go to other gyms outside. I had a fancy car that I was paying a lot of money on that I barely wanted to take out, because everywhere that I wanted to go or everywhere that I was either invited to was in a different side of town that took hours to get to because of traffic. Parking was a hassle, and therefore I didn't go out a lot. So there was really no point of having a car or even living in the big city. I was invited to these events like 3 to 4 times a week that people from the outside looking in would love to go. You know, if you were looking at Instagram photos of these events, events, you would just like envy, and you would just dream about these type of like events, and you would really want to be invited to them. But really, whenever I was at one of these events, I felt like I was in a room full of people who were just blindly walking around, super disconnected from themselves, super disconnected from everybody else. They were either on their phones or just having surface level conversations, just wanting to connect so that way they can benefit their business, to network, or just to make money. Nothing felt genuine or authentic. Everything was super surfaced. And if I had to continue that lifestyle, I think that I would feel more lost than I've ever been. Because I took a step back from work, it's as if I just quit a job or I lost a job. It's very uncertain and it's very scary. A lot of people would think so. My sister, my family would not understand this. They would just like, oh my God, like, what are you gonna do now? You know, it is scary, but at the same time, if I continued the life that I was living, I would just fall into a depression. I was just not making any genuine connections. I was feeling jaded from the relationships that I have. I was feeling burned out. I was feeling used. There are times when I think about the uncertainty and where I am right now, but I am more financially free than I ever been, because the fact that I realized that I don't need so much and that I don't want so much, there's this financial freedom that I have in my life now. Like, I can be happy living in a studio apartment. I can be happy living in a smaller town. I can be happy with a regular car or a used car. I can be happy with less. I'm very fortunate that I paid off all of my debt. I have a retirement savings, and hopefully I'm making some smart choices with my investments. But I'm at a place where I feel more financially free than I have ever felt in my life. And so instead of focusing on the uncertainty and how scary it is and allowing fear to run my life again, I'm going to take this time and finally enjoy it. I don't need to make millions of dollars. I don't need to live in a fancy place. I just want to feel free. And I feel like this journey towards seeking minimalism has really helped me come closer to that freedom. Maybe I won't be 100% free, but I'm definitely less stressed than I have ever been. So breaking this down, my relationship with money started as seeing it as something unobtainable, feeling like I lack it. Later on, I realized that I had to work really hard for what it is I want. But then when money started coming, I still held on to this belief of that I don't deserve this money. And that's when I allow imposter syndrome to run my life. Through that, I became a little bit jaded and became a little bit afraid of money because I thought that it was evil. It makes and create evil people. And so I just allow fear to run my life. I ran away from it altogether. But when I realized that if I just keep running away from this, I will allow it to just overcome me, and I will allow fear to run my life. And so in order for me to take control over my life again, I had to reevaluate my relationship with money and see how it can benefit me and work for me instead of me working for it. And so therefore, I am here at this point in my life where I feel more financially free because I realized that the things that I've wanted weren't really the things that were serving me, and that I genuinely want less, to work less and live more. And so this is where I am in my life. You know, I don't know exactly what will happen soon or what is my next, what are my next few steps in life altogether. I just know that I want to feel peaceful, I want to feel free, and I am coming closer to that. So if you enjoyed today's video and today's conversation, and if you want to support me, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment. I always enjoy those long, lengthy comments. I enjoy all of your comments, but those long, lengthy comments is like receiving a letter from a friend far away. Or you could check out the links below this video if you want to support me. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching. I always appreciate you. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.